Hey, also, let's say you're in a situation where you've got to modify like 30 scene files because you want to change the light settings. I haven't found a good way to do this up until right now by writing my own implementation. So I'm going to show you the end result, and then if you think that's cool and you want to learn more about it, continue watching the video. So let's go to Unity real quick and have a look at the scenario. The scenario is that all these scenes down here that I got to modify, they all have a few things on that I want off. I don't want the environmental skybox. I don't want real-time lighting. I don't want mixed lighting, and I don't want auto-generated light maps. So instead of clicking all these things, what we're going to do is run a script that's going to go through all the scene files and make the modification based on the settings I've given it, like so. Once that's done running, I can go back to Unity. It'll ask if I want to reload this scene. I'm going to click yes, and you can see that it has been updated appropriately. Skybox gone, real-time lighting off, mixed lighting off, all that stuff looks good. So that's basically how the script runs in actual practice. So let's look at how this is all constructed. Basically, it's modifying the Unity files themselves. If you have them stored as text, which I think is over here in the editor settings, let's have a quick look. Project settings, go down to editor, and if you scroll through here, you're looking for version control, and you're looking for asset serialization. You want to make sure asset serialization is set to forced text. This is going to be something you're going to use with version control all the time. Should be on anyway. So just make sure it's set to forced text. Now when it's set to forced text, this means we can get access to our scene files in code. I'm going to show you what that looks like. All these scene files are actually stored in YAML. So I'm going to flip views again. We're going to go to the code editor and open up one of these files in YAML. And this is what we get. So there's documentation on the Unity website to break this down a little bit, but high level, the first 116 lines of this thing all the way down to, you'll see a little break here, 116 right here. Everything from this line up is part of the scene's default configuration, and it's always going to be there. All these values are always on the same lines, so you can consistently plan that these things are going to be here. So the first thing I did was I figured out which of these values corresponds with each of these settings. And the easiest way to do that, although I won't demonstrate it now, is to take this file, duplicate it, and then save it, and start changing things in one file and run a diff and watch which values change in the diff. So for this example, I happen to know which values I need to change. So part 2 of this thing is defining a script to hold the values. So this script right here, it's called, let's see if I remember, USA settings. Okay. So what's going on here is I'm just defining line by line. So line 23 of the configuration file here controls the ambient sky color. And I know I want to set the ambient sky color to black. I know the ambient mode, I know the skybox material that I want to set. So right down here you can follow it down. And notice these are going by line. So line 29 is always going to be the skybox material. So line 29, skybox material. So the first thing I do is I set all my overrides here. The thing to notice too is there's some spacing going on. This is my implementation of it. YAML is really picky about spacing, so I define all the spacing within this configuration file. So once the configuration file is set, there's a two-part approach. File number 1 that controls this is USA. And what this file basically does is it looks at the settings file and then it says, okay, give me one Unity scene file. And I'm going to make this text just a little bit smaller. Hopefully it's still nice and readable for you. Anyway, there we go. Make this a little larger. Cool. I'm still trying to dink around with OBS video capture. Okay, cool. So it's doing a for each loop with the keys. It's treating this data over here, the configuration data. Oh, I closed it. Well, basically it takes the scene file, it makes a copy of it over here, and then I'll just read the functions. Sorry, this is a little confusing. I haven't tried to explain this before. But the steps are basically ready check, so it looks for arguments to make sure you're passing it, the scene file you want to edit, Then it fills a temporary file, so it takes it and clones it somewhere and just makes a temp file to work in. Unity is actually pretty picky. If you try to write to a file inside of Unity, Unity will try to mess with that file sometimes before it's done. So do it elsewhere. So you clone it, then you fill it with all the information, and then you replace the settings in it, and then you update the scene. So what we're doing here is we're saying for, right here, this for each, it's going get content, so it's pulling in the little template file we just made, and then it's saying, okay, take every single line, put it into an array, and then for that array, go ahead and pull our configuration file, which I'm going to reopen again so we can reference here. It says for each of these, go ahead and find the line number, and then find what to put on that line. So it says, okay, line 23, well that's actually line 22. We're going to go ahead and set the value of that, and then we're going to assign it. So we're taking the old line and we're just going to overwrite it with a new line that we specified in that file. And that's what it does to the temporary file. It goes right through and just rewrites all the lines. So when that's done, down here, update scene, this is a function that says, okay, give me the temporary file, and then we're going to take that file and we're going to specifically use set content to write over it. Now set content has got a property where basically it locks the I/O of the file, so if you're trying to write to Unity, this will prevent Unity from modifying your file while you're still writing it. Hope that makes sense. So that's good. And then down here, it's defining a path for it, for X down here. And this is just basically saying, okay, render out the nice little check boxes at the end. It says, all right, well, it's done. We're going to render out a checkbox. It's green. And run the thing. So this actually just works on one file at a time. And this is this modular approach of building a utility and then building a separate script to iterate the utility. So if we were just going to fire this off, for example, I would need to give it a full path to an actual file, which I'm not going to do. I'm sure you understand how that works. You type the command in, give it a path, and it iterates on one thing. So that's cool, but in order to get it to iterate over everything, there's one more script. So USA all. And this is a pattern I've been using. This is the iterator script. And so what this does is it basically says, okay, give me a directory. And in this case, this is the directory with all the Unity files in it. And then down here it says, point me at the utility. And that's the USA utility we just worked on a second ago. And then for scenes down here, it says, go ahead and get all the children recursively in the directory where it's a Unity object. So the English version of that is, look inside this folder recursively and give me everything that's a .unity file. So you get an array of all those files back. And then the iterator goes through and it basically says, okay, we're going to go ahead and update the scene. So for each scene, that's a big old list of scenes we got, go ahead and put the name together, which is down here. This is just like a little parsing to put a file name together. And then this line right here, this Y, USA, USAC, and followed by IXEY. What that does is it's putting together a command line argument. So basically it's saying like, I'll just make something up like dir/w would be the command. So this thing parses together an actual like command string that's a little bit funky to pass by normal means. And then this IXE basically says, okay, execute whatever that string is as if you were typing it into the command line. So that is when the actual command comes together, the USA.ps1 path to scene .unity, and then it would iterate over each one each time. So scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, and just goes one after another right down the list. That's all the script does, guys. It's just an iterator script. So it fires off that utility several times. When that happens, that's when you get the magic. So it continues to go through each file. It basically says, okay, give me the scene, load it to a temporary file, and then when you're done loading it to a temporary file, replace each and every line from the configuration file with what's specified, and then take that final file that's been modified and copy it over the top of the original scene there. So all together, you get this, it runs through, does the work, and then it saves me a hell of a lot of time. Hopefully saves you a lot of time too with this approach. I would love to know if there's a better way of doing this. If anybody can think of anything that's more, concise or easier, please put it in the comments. But this seems to be working for now. This is version 2. I wrote another version of this that actually kind of cuts the first 116 lines and then swaps it into another file, and I had all sorts of issues with that because the Unity YAML files include a lot of what I think is like key generated data or local asset reference databases, stuff I don't really understand yet. And what I realized quickly is that messing with those values is a way to break a lot of stuff quickly. So instead of messing with everything, we're messing with just like very precise little values by swapping out lines at a time. So I really hope this is helpful to you. The idea of not being able to like modify something like a scene setting in Unity across all the files, it was driving me a little bit crazy. There's not enough time to sit there and point and click on every single little thing. So this is my solution to that problem. So hey, hopefully it helps you out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And that's it. Happy coding out there. And remember, if you got any tips and tricks, send them on in. I would love to know how to level my game up too. I'm just, doing the best I can here and breaking it down to individual pieces. So there you go. Peace. I'm out.